Welcome to another episode of the Ball at All Cost podcast. Yes, we're back, and we have our esteemed panelists Deji and OC, and also a special guest, Jason Johnson. How are we doing all?
All good.
Good. And as everyone knows by now, we do our health check. We check in with all our regular guys, and then we touch base with Jason, and we kick off the convo. And we ask the listeners to like and subscribe. You know what to do. Subscribe, smash the like button, hit the notification, and please leave a comment. If you've got a question for us, please leave it in the comments. That's the only place we're going to pick up our questions these days. Also, if you're listening on the audio feed, please leave a review and please leave a like. Thank you. We appreciate each and every one of you that does that. The subscribers are going up, the reviews are going up, and the likes are going up. So we appreciate you. So, Deji, we're going to talk football. How are you doing? I'm sure. I don't know your result, but you don't want to know my result. So let's go.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm nursing. It's that time of the year, so I'm nursing a little bit. I can feel the onset of the flu. But yeah, no, the boys did well today. They won 7-2. For me, the team that we played is it's a legendary team, but obviously are going through a little bit of a transition. I've lost about maybe eight or nine players, and they've recruited 8 or 9. But I think they'll be all right. They played really well. But I think they're going through a bit of a transition phase. But we'll take that because, as you know, winning the game in our league is very, very difficult. So we'll take it and we'll move on to play the mighty, your other team next week.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. Nice. Glad you got a win. OC, how you doing?
I'm on mute. Yeah, I'm good. Do you know what? Got to keep it professional. Like the football results don't normally get to me, but today's not been a fantastic day of football. With the boys, they lost. Still yet to win this season, but the performance was positive. We're actually over your place today, over at Peter May. It was a good game. They lost in the last second, but positive signs. But on a more personal tip, we won't go there anyway. That's not what the pod's about. But it wasn't the best result for my team today either.
So I thought you were going to pick up your first yellow card of the season there, OC.
No, like I say, we'll keep it professional.
Okay, good man. And Jason, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. It's it's been a nice chilled weekend, and then my team, my son didn't play this weekend. We've had a week off, but weekend off as well, so it's been nice. Just a bit of downtime. But then I for some reason I took him to my club, and we didn't get a victory today. So very frustrating.
Sounds like everybody apart from Deji needs to talk about basketball, cricket, or rugby, or something other than the football. That's what it sounds like. Football does that to you some weeks. It is the gift. It is the gift, but the gift can be cruel sometimes.
That's it.
So that's why we keep it moving. And we're here to talk about our Academy series. And guys, if you have been regular listeners, you know what this is about. You know what time it is. If you haven't, this is this segment or the series where we talk to a parent of an Academy player. And we talk through their journey, and we talk about the academy, and we try to give some insight and get some nuggets for those aspiring parents and players who wish to begin their journey in the academy. So we're going to talk about with Jason. His son has signed for one of the Cat 1 academies locally, and is an under 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, under 9.
Yeah. And he signed roughly April, so the beginning of the season. This is his first season. But it didn't start there with his footballing journey, did it? Where did it start, Jason? Talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone so quick. I mean, he turned 9 on Tuesday, and you sort of reflect back at where the journey began. That little baby boy, and then all of a sudden he's talking back, and he thinks he's a little mini baller. But anyway, the story starts. I mean, yeah, little kickers, I suppose, 18 months old. Like I think
Little kickers.
Yeah, I'm sure most people have done that journey or something very similar. And yeah, little kickers in Hornchurch, that's where it started. And, just the little drills and the little mini skills. But very quickly it was apparent that, yeah, he just had a little bit, like he just, I know that sounds silly, but he got to 2, got to 3. And then when he got to 3, around sort of 3-4 time, but just before lockdown, he was moving up with the older groups and the older kids. So he was sort of playing with the 4 and 5-year-olds, and then lockdown hit. And then, if I'm being honest, that was the time where, myself, my brother, we just, you had to meet up with family, right? And so we would take him over Hornchurch and just do
outside.
Outside, working together, and we'd put on our little drills. And I was saying to OC recently, we reflected, and I was looking back at some of the videos that I used to, even back then, we used to put together, and a 4-year-old doing these little mini drills over Britain's playing fields was probably a little bit too over the top. But the reality is that probably started the journey, So so yeah, from little kickers, and then I would say after COVID, that's when it really sort of kicked in, because again everything opened back up, and he was in the last year of nursery, but he was sort of playing with year 1 boys, and I think that was the time where. Wow. Yeah, that was a time where it was like, oh, okay, this is different. But he was beating players. He was very sort of tricky on the ball, very quick, like myself when I was younger, of course. But but he just showed a little bit of that hunger for the ball. And if I'm being honest, as I've said to a few people over the years, you have to have that love for the game. And very quickly, we're big fans of football in our family. So he was always going to watch it, and I think all the Premier League games, you remember during COVID, all the Premier League games were on. So he was watching football pretty much all the time. When I was watching it, he was watching it. All games, not just our club. He was watching all the teams. So I think that's where the love for the game developed. And we've not got a big garden, but again, he was able to go out in the garden, kick the ball in the net, all the basic things that I'm sure all of us have done, right? And then so that was almost what I would say the starting point. So that little kickers period, and then I made the decision. I knew a few people at Tigers, and so when he was in reception, I basically spoke to a couple of guys, and they said, "Look, bring him over to Tigers. I know he's in reception. I think he had one session with like the reception kids, and then the year one kids sort of played an hour later, from what I remember." And the manager just said, the guy who was running at the time just said, "No, if you can stay another hour." Just stick him in with the year 1 boys, and that almost started the journey of almost playing up an age group. So because he's born in October, he was very fortunate that he was then basically, when the boys then went on to play, when they became under 7s, he was still an under 6, but I think he missed the first 3 games of the season, but very much he was able to play up the whole of that Echo year. So that's pretty much where the journey started, if I'm being honest, Andrew.
So brilliant. You just touched on one of the questions I was going to ask, because you said earlier about him being in nursery and playing with year 1s. So I was going to ask, is he a Q1? Is he big for his age, or is he the right height? Is he tenacious? And if he is, where does he get all of this from that allowed him to play up, or is it just pure ability?
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, so as you said, Q1 baby, right? So that allowed him to play up. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think the technical ability, and again, that's why I really emphasise the little kickers, because I think that's the fundamentals, right? I think we can all sort of turn a blind eye to those fundamentals, but the reality is the dribbles in and out of the cones, the little passing drills, the kicking it in the net, running back. They're all the things that all the boys have done on their little journey already, right? So it's just expanded and extended. So I think the technical ability, I think that was honed into him, but I think it's a bit of natural ability. Myself, my brother, we played as well, so should have started that really, with a bit of backstory. So I played, I was Barking Colts back in the day, in the Echo League myself. So, up against your Semrabs and all the likes, the Ridgeway Rovers. So, I was always quite small, if I'm being honest, but stocky, so I could handle myself. So I'd say Ralph is, he's a nippy little player. I wouldn't say he's like really small, but equally he's not one of the tallest. But he's also got the tenacity there to be smart. He doesn't get involved in, from a young age, he never got involved in when everyone's crowding around the ball. He almost stood out a little bit by standing out from away from the crowd, and when the ball popped out, he would then do his business, basically.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So, more questions coming your way now on the back of that. So, shout out to Little Kickers, first and foremost. Shout out to Little Kickers. They've been around for ages. Like you said, 18 months. They're the only ones, well, when my sons were little, that took children from 18 months. Everywhere else was 2 years. Yeah. However, I have a slightly different opinion of Little Kickers than you do, maybe. So, I always said Little Kickers was a great start in the sense that they got them playing football on a weekly basis with other kids and encourage them to do drills, etc. But what I found with Little Kickers, and I know they're all independent franchises, so I think this is where you get your specific coaches that make differences.
Yeah, that's right.
So my eldest son's first Little Kickers experience, he had a coach that really just loved trying to help the kids, got so much enjoyment out of it. And I think was trying to get them to play football. Whereas other coaches at Little Kickers, and this is their franchise, this is their brand, they use football as a method to teach and to gain confidence, as opposed to getting the kids to play football, that next level of actually playing matches, one-on-ones, etc., and focusing on that. So just out of curiosity, was your experience with Ralph and Little Kickers different?
Yeah, so I would say it's more football based, and I think that's one of the reasons why the coach that was there at the time. I mean, he's ran the sort of where we are. He's run that centre for sort of 10 years or so, right? And he's still there now. We saw him recently, so he's always had a he's from like a footballing background himself, so I think he always wanted to ensure that, of course, supporting the boys and girls on their journey, but equally if he saw someone with ability, and there were a number of boys who had that ability, he would really try and hone that into them. And that was, sounds silly, but like you look back, the small-sided games when they were sort of 4, that's what they're doing now, right? It's 3v3s now, right? Yeah. So it's very much the fundamentals of doing it quickly and sharp. That it's just building on that and actually using both feet. So from a young age, I've said to Ralph, you need to use both feet, and I'll say, here's 10 balls on your right, here's 10 balls on your left. But Little Kickers also did that as well, so it encouraged that development. So yes, in terms of your question, it's our centre was more of a footballing centre, but I do know when we had to go to a couple of other centres, especially after COVID, where certain things weren't open, some of the coaches would be like, put the bean bags in the bucket and all that business. So, it is what it is, but it all helps with the congenitively. But the reality is, we had a footballing coach at the time.
Yeah, it makes a big difference in it, especially at that age group. But no, shout out to Little Kickers. That wasn't a slight on them. That was just me painting the picture. I don't want everyone to flood to Little Kickers and then ask for refunds if their son doesn't get signed to a Cat 1, right? So, brilliant. So, obviously, during COVID, you guys went out to the park. Famously, one player from your club was also in the park with the manager at the time. He didn't go so well. So what was it that you guys did differently in the park, yourself and your brother? What kind of drills were you doing at this age? Talk me through what you saw in him and what you were working on and why.
Yeah, so what I saw in Ralph from a very young age is he was a good listener. And he still is now, and he listens well and takes on information really well. So we'd set up just again from Little Kickers, but then also set up. I would then mould those drills, obviously from when I used to play football. So again, I played semi-pro as well for a little bit, and I do a bit of scouting now as well. So again, I would take all of those things into it, and obviously I grew up in an era. Where it was a touch and send it, right? But the reality is, I used to play football as well. So for me, when I was setting up the drills for Ralph, I was trying to make them very simple. So in and out the cones, but then also making little challenges for him. So, if you have to go through the cone, can you go through the green cone really quickly? And then as you're approaching the red cone, can you turn with the inside of your right foot and then strike it with your left foot? And then I'll do the same on the opposite side. So again, sounds very basic stuff, but obviously at that sort of 4 or 5 age group, it can be a challenge for some kids, right? And so I'd say that the in and out the cone drills were the main ones. We had the mini goals. I got fully involved. Got the Forza mini goals.
Shout out to Forza.
Yeah, shout out to Forza. Look the part, right? And but again, just those mini goals, just striking it, just getting that, dare I say it, that eye coordination, and just understanding that once you've finished, okay, now you got to go back and do the next drill. So again, what I do now is that repetition is so important. A bit like in schools, right? When you might go over the same things in school, it was the same thing I felt for his sort of footballing education. I mean, he likes sports, he likes all sports, but football was the main thing in our household. And I say, with my brother helping as well, we could then set up little drills and crossing the ball, and obviously because he loves football, he wanted to score goals, do the celebrations, knee slides, all the rest of it. So yeah.
Brilliant. I've got one more question before I hand over to Deji. And I'm going to do a Deji here, which is bundle 2 questions together very quickly. You mentioned your brother played. Who did he play for? Like, what was his record there? And the second question is Q1, October born, good listener. I think you said he's smart. How was he in school as well? Did that kind of parallel with the football?
Yeah, I mean, basically, he was that kid who, you get there in nursery reception and you go to pick up. He was at the front, it didn't matter what he always wanted to. He always wants to win. He always wants to be first. If was it dojos in the school now? Like, he wants to make sure if someone's got 50 dojos, he wants 51. So right. He's got that competitive edge, which I think in my opinion, you can teach it, but equally it needs to be in you as well. Yeah. You got to have that. You got to have that will to win, and also have that attitude of, okay, if I'm not winning, what do I need to do? What do I need to do differently? From that perspective. And sorry, your second, the other part of the question.
Yeah, I'll answer in a second, but I ask these specific questions. I just think it's good to paint a framework around Ralph now, and just so people can understand the type of individual that we're talking about at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and why that person might get signed to a Cat 1. Because these are the things you're speaking of, characteristics that this boy is showing, some trained, some taught, some natural, right? And all of these things, a cacophony of these things go into these type of boys. So this is why I'm asking some of these questions. The last question from me was your brother. You said he played as well. So
yes, so very, very, very similar. He sort of played for a number of home church clubs, and he went on to play for Redbridge, Barking as well. So very much a semi-pro circuit. But he didn't, a bit like myself. We didn't quite make it into the academy system, but we were both sort of West Ham development centres, as it was at the time. So we had an insight into it, over at Chapel Heath. So again, round the corner to where we are. So it was a good breeding ground. Again, some of the coaching that I had there, I've taken those experiences as well into what I do now as well. So so we've both got that sort of football sort of pedigree behind us, and our dad was quite a strict guy. So again, he used to take us out. We lived in Essex, but he used to take us over to Wanstead Flats. Like, we'd be like, Dad, like, we don't want to go. So that's where it all comes from. I think that's what I started doing with Ralph when he was younger.
Brilliant.
Jason, thank you so much. As you're talking, you're just rolling back the years. I think I need to state, if you were at Barking Colts, you may remember a team in the Echo Prem called Cali Boys.
Yeah, I remember them.
And if you remember Cali Boys, then there was a striker whizzing down. That was probably me. So good to see you, good to meet you. A few years on. I've got a couple of questions, actually.
Yeah, of course.
Andrew had already alluded to. The first question is, I want to know what is your football philosophy? What are you expecting of, kids under 7, under 8? Because obviously Cat 1 is quite elite. There's quite a level.
Yep.
And someone who's played someone who's played pro, semi-pro, someone who clearly knows the game, you clearly have standards. What are your standards?
Okay, yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, look, the first and foremost, you have to love the game, right? If you do not love the game, win, lose, or draw, then maybe the game's too big for you, right? So you have to love the game first and foremost. And then once you've fallen in love with the game, you then have a philosophy. So, some people like dribblers, some people like finishers, some people like the art of defending. So my whole footballing life has always been sort of midfield, creative, but also using the ball, right? So, I'm not against dribblers. I used to be a winger back in the day, number 7, etc., which is probably where Ralph gets it from. But then as obviously you get older, you sort of go back into right back or do a job in midfield. But my philosophy all the way through was playing football in the right way. So, I used to give it and go, deliver, and that's how I sort of try and encourage Ralph to find that space and look up, find the right player, and make the right decision. Now, you can't tell a 6-7-year-old to make the right decision. However, what you can do is train it into them when you're doing your little drills. So, as any parent, if they're going to work on the drills with their son or daughter, just make sure that you're encouraging them to make the right decision. So, if you're saying take a touch of your back foot, again, that's using words they may not understand initially, but taking that first touch is so important to then get the strike off. So for me, yeah, I was a creative player. So my philosophy is very much let the ball do the work. I know I say it more as I've got older now, to be honest, but let the ball do the work, but equally make sure you're creating that space and try and do things in less touches. So as Ralph has gone through the system and as we've gone through the Echo League, playing in Argentina. So when he was playing up in Tigers initially, he was in Echo C. So again, that gave him that ability he was in the pre-academies, but he gave him the opportunity just to showcase a few things. Was he the standout? Probably not because of the size, but he was doing the right things. And then when we dropped him back down to his own age group to then start playing under 7s within OC's Tigers team, that's when we then saw in that first under 7 season the slight differences. And when he was coming up against those under 7 boys, the decision making was just a little bit sharper than some of the others. Not to say that others weren't good enough, but just his decision making at that stage made him stand out a little bit.
No, I love that. And after this, my second question, I've got one more, and then I'll pass on to my bro OC. So for me, there's a debate going on. I've been speaking to a lot of parents in my son's team. My son actually wears the number 7 shirt. So, hint. And if you want to do some work, let me know. I'm a big believer in kids, ballers. First and foremost, I see them as, when they're at the top level, I see them as young athletes. I see them as elite. I try to remind parents that, at the level they're playing at, you probably couldn't play at their level when you were their age. So we're dealing with young, top of their game athletes. Yeah. But at the same time, me personally, I love what you were talking about in terms of finding the space, because there's a lot of arguments, and I see a lot of parents who are encouraging their kids to be head down, dribble. And I can't stand it when I don't see good decision making. How are you in relation to the decision making of other kids? So you see your son, he has an understanding of space. He's quite happy to pass that ball, but then the other kids don't. How do you respond to that?
I think everyone goes on their own development journey. I think you have to respect the journey of that boy or that girl. Sorry, I think it goes back to what I was saying about listening and understanding. So if there's an individual that's maybe dribbling quite a lot, again, I don't think that's a bad thing. Stay on the ball. But like you say, when it comes down to just making that decision, if a coach then says, okay, Ralph, next time, can you get your head up and pass that ball? If Ralph then doesn't do that the first time, second time, third time, that's where me as a parent, that's where I then get involved and say, look, Ralph, your coach has specifically asked you to do that, and therefore you need to look to carry that instruction. Maybe not every time, but that for me, do you understand what from a development perspective, that's what your coach is asking of you? Because if they're doing it at sort of 6, 7, 8 and they're not listening, when they get to 9, 10, 11 and you're in the system, that's where the reality is. Those decisions that could be made on my son's future, what could I have done earlier in the piece, just to say, look, just be aware you can finish, you can dribble on your own, but actually, what's the decision you're going to make? And what I said to Ralph is, if you need to go on a dribble, and your decision is you're going to finish, just make sure you finish, or deliver the pass. If you're going to make that decision to pass, don't hesitate, because equally that other team will counter attack. And that's whether that was going through the Echo season, that was going through futsal, that was going through the pre-academy stage. It was the same sort of same sort of themes I used to say to him.
No, thank you. And last but not least, obviously, your son, from very young, 18 months, got him in, and I would say some would argue, if already there's a talent there that you can spot, then you've got in quite early on. That's very good. From a personal perspective, for you as a parent, is it ball at all cost?
No, I think we're quite fortunate, and we're very lucky, very blessed that he's shown a talent, and he's shown a love for the game. And what I would say to any parent is that this is my son's sporting hobby journey, and currently he is they're seen as like elite ballers, right? Let's have it right. So you want to make sure that you can, if he shows the love for it and enjoys it, that's key, that you help him hone that and develop that. So it may come later, but one of the key things for me is when we had to make the decision about where he was going to go, it's like picking a school, right? I've got two kids. I've got one in senior school now, and then I've got Ralph. And the decision we made for the academy was very similar to our secondary school for our daughter. We went around, make informed decisions about, let's look at all the different clubs where we were lucky enough to have the opportunity. And therefore, we made the right decision based on our circumstances, right? We didn't follow badges. What people might say that I did, but the reality is it had to work, right? Because there are other clubs closer to us, but it had to work for us, because I work, my wife works, So, was Ralph happy at the clubs? He was happy at all the clubs, but where do you play your best football? And again, I might touch on it later on, but just how we made those decisions. There was a number of factors that came into that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
No worries.
JJ.
Sweet.
Nice to come on the pod. Listen, the smile never left my face. Like when Ralphie signed with the club, like I'm actually feeling quite emotional about it now, innit? Because I saw the journey from when he started with us to where he's got to, and do you know what? I think what you said in terms of that ability to listen and the love for the game, it just shines through. So I think what Andrew was getting onto at the beginning, a few questions around it, just trying to understand a bit more about the kid, because whilst he's born in October and he got the opportunity to play up, which I think certainly helped him, there's other kids that are born in October, September, kids that are a year older than him, but actually their ability to listen and take on information isn't the same. So I think sometimes, whilst we're not going to get into a debate about Q1s and Q4s and things of that nature, I think sometimes it's just the aptitude of the kid. And Ralph is a kid where he's just switched on. He's just absolutely switched on. And I think that's what stands him apart.
Thank you.
But I think because you've got kids now, they're under 6, they're under 7, they're on that journey. I think just want to hear a little bit more about your approach to his development, because you've got some that they go to many different group sessions, they really drill into the one-to-ones. And I think whilst Ralph probably has done those things, I feel like your approach has been a little bit different, where it's been a bit more you and him. So I just want, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to understand a little bit more about why it is you decided to perhaps focus more on the father-son path rather than what everyone else seems to be doing.
Yeah, no, really good question. And I suppose if I go back to almost continue the story on from we moved on from little kickers, we're at Tigers now, and then we're sort of hitting the pre-academy sort of the stage at 6, 7, 8. I think I took the decision off the back of COVID, right? That I felt actually Ralph's listening to me. I think I know my stuff, and I just thought actually we've got to say a garden had a goal, and there was just little drills that I thought and information that I could feed to him, maybe in that stage of his journey, and certainly the early stage where he could get that understanding. Then what I did probably around, I'm going to say late under 6, maybe that under 6 season, maybe the January, February, we did our first one-to-one. So again with another individual sort of near us, and it was very technical skills and very, very, very sharp. But I did that because I wanted to complement what I was doing, and I thought it was also important for him to hear another voice, because I think, as we know, we all three of us know, right, as parents, sometimes that father-son relationship, you're trying to help them, but deep down they may not be, they may not take on everything, and it can sometimes be a little bit of tension. So I thought, actually, just to balance this out, let's drop him into some one-to-one sessions. So the end of that under 6 season, he was sort of doing weekly sessions with a one-to-one coach, very much focused on the technical abilities. And then it was from there, that's where he really started to again sharpen up, because again he was at Tigers, he was playing up a year, but he's doing the bits with me, bits with the one-to-one individual, and then that is when I believe that the it started to click, and then as we know, the Cat 1, Cat 2, or academy scouts start to circle. Also, I mean, as I mentioned briefly, I scout for Colchester as well, sort of doing it still doing it voluntarily. So I'd sort of seen sort of some of the journey that some of the other younger kids had gone on in the previous 2 years when I started just after COVID. So again, I could then understand, okay, what are the sort of things that he may need to improve on, or some of the more technical things. So yeah, it was a different journey to others, and then as we went into the under 7, we did our group sessions. And we did, group sessions that I think we all know about that are out there with some of the Cat 1 clubs, linked to Cat 1 clubs. We did those, but again, if I'm being honest with you, OC, it's a lot of money. Right? Yeah. I'm just going to be real, right? It's a lot of money for people, and whilst people say, "Oh, well, you're investing in your son," I get that, but equally, you have to balance, and so you keep using that word balance. You have to balance things out. So that's why I decided to use the option of complementing what I do with him. So that could be weekly. So again, in terms of roughly what that looked like, it was probably 2-3 times a week. But then obviously, as his journey went on through under 7s in the pre-academy, it became a little bit less, because he was going to these pre-academies most nights of the week. So it's important to have that rest time and have that balance. But what I would say is, I think it's just important just to look at your son's workload or son or daughter's workload, and just try and have that balance across the piece.
Yeah. I like that perspective, because let's face it, it is BallAtAllCost for a lot of parents out there. It is, from as young as 4 or 5 year olds that they're rinsing 2-3 one-to-ones a week, and I think that I've had conversations, and some of the prices and some of the outlay that they're doing on a weekly and a monthly basis is insane. And whilst perhaps not everybody plays semi-pro, perhaps not everyone's a scout at Colchester, I think that there's space for parents to take a little bit more ownership with their journey, with their kids' journey, and just help them along, and also nurture that relationship. Because whilst at times it's a strain, isn't it? I've had a bit of a strain with my son earlier on, but actually he loves going out with me. He loves just going out and working on the basics, and then if there's things where those details that I'm not akin with, that's when we look outside and see if we can just add those additional details to help their journey. But obviously, listen, we worked together for a couple of years. Blessing to have Ralph and the team. What I wanted to ask you was just about environment. Not trying to build myself up, but I think that we did have a good environment, and it was quite simple for the kids. Quite simple in terms of the framework that we gave them to think through. But Yeah, the team was fantastic. The team did really well for a Tigers team. We competed against all the top names. Got a lot of silver upstairs. But what I was going to ask is, when parents are thinking about football teams, trying to get through to pre-academy, what's your thoughts around that? Because I know that Ralph played with us in under 7, and I'm sure people listen, we've never had a conversation about it, but I'm aware clubs will be tapping up. Yeah, they will be. The bigger clubs, yeah. So why is it that you chose to stay in Tigers when perhaps there's other clubs that are getting boys through? And how important is environment to you?
Yeah. So again, I'll go back to when he first started at Tigers, right? So he came in, trialled it, sort of. I say trialled, came in for training as a reception, so Tigers Cubs as they call it, and ever since then he sort of fell in love with the. He fell in love with going to Tigers on a Saturday, putting his little kit on. He loved that, and playing in the games, and I think what we enjoyed was that it was almost a family feel, and he felt comfortable. So from he was lucky enough that there was kids he went to school with, that were in the older group. So so that helped him as well. So he was able to go back and they all chat at school. How'd you get on today, etc. So I think he enjoyed that part of it. But I think ultimately, the environment that he had at Tigers was a safe environment. I think you just touched on that. It was I know there are some really good grassroots clubs. And I say I've played in the Echo League. There's some really good grassroots clubs, but equally, sometimes some of those clubs can maybe, without knowing it, there's a lot of pressure that goes in. Sometimes good pressure, right? Because it's testing environments, and kudos to everyone who played for those what say renowned top teams. I think that's hopefully you respect what I'm going to say. And hopefully putting on from Tigers is listening. Over the years, Tigers have not been seen as a top. They're not a top Echo team in terms of churning out regular academy children, right? Just being really honest. But in terms of the environment and the family environment and the club environment, I don't think there's many better. If I'm being honest, so that for me was the important thing. The tournaments that we had, the events that you have, Christmas, I don't believe you get that at some of the other grassroots. You may get it in small doses, but as a club, we had over 60 clubs from all age groups, right? Women's teams, girls teams, massive, and I think I really enjoyed that the part, and as myself and my wife did, but also Ralph did, and therefore I felt that this was probably the right environment for Ralph to stay in as he was on his development journey. And the reason why I say that, he was getting those opportunities while still at Tigers. So maybe if he wasn't getting those opportunities, would I have been open to trialing elsewhere? Maybe, but if I'm being honest, we didn't. Tigers was doing everything we wanted when we dropped him down to your team's age group or his right age group. I said to you at the time, the challenge needed to be Echo A. And that's where we played, right? And we competed in the Echo A, and we were respected, and also Ralph was respected as a player, and he was able to, he had good days, sometimes they had bad days or development days, I call them, but the reality is that's all part of the development.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to dig into that. I'll give way in a second, but for me, Tigers, I don't think they've got any teams in Argentina, be it under 7s and 8s now, and I think when I in under 6 season, when I was saying I want them to go and play in Echo A, I think the kids need to be challenged, they need to be tested. And I remember there were a few conversations saying, maybe take it a little bit slower, but I think that grounding that they had in there, that allowed them to understand what the level was and aspire on. So we had a group of 7, and I think the vast majority of boys played pre-academy, and three boys got through and got signed. So I feel like without them playing at that level, I'm not too sure if that would have still been the case. So Yeah. It was a good run.
It was just important to test themselves, right? And I think, again, and when I say test themselves, I think the Echo League, in my opinion, is the best grassroots league, in and around our, the Essex, London area. In my opinion, I think there's good teams elsewhere. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of that competitiveness, we had 12 teams in our league, and literally, like you say, we'd rock up to Peter May, maybe think, we're not going to get anything. Then we might nick something. Then we might go to Billericay and play the farm, and they might roll you over. But then you rock up at Byron, you go and beat that. On the day, it's a good test. It's a good test.
100%. I just wanted to chime in, if you don't mind, because one of the things that it's quite refreshing, just seeing you and OC talk is, I've always said it, that the importance of having that belief and also having ambition. Too often I see some grassroots teams holding players back. It's too right. Like what you were saying, isn't it? Is it too quick? Slow down. But if you can see that there's talent there, then that talent needs to be tested at the highest level. So, wanting to just commend you both. What was that belief based on? Because on one hand, you might have had parents who would have thought that this is madness, and are you about to send us into the lions then? And get eaten up by lions by some of these established teams. But what was it about that crop? Because I felt like my son's team had a certain je ne sais quoi, and had that team stayed together when he was under 7, they would have smashed it, at the park. I think 2 of those boys went on to an academy, and most of them are all pretty much Echo A actually now. But what was it? What was it about that group? What was so special? Because Tigers, you are right, they're not renowned for being in the A. So, and also, why did you stay? That's my bundle, Andrew. Why did you stay with them? You could have easily gone to a Ryan. You could have gone to a Haddekins. You could have gone to a Finesse. I mean, why did you stay? Because that was a risk in itself. But I mean that in a genuine way, not in a disparaging way. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, like you say, it could have been a risk, and Achure knows. There were people that spoke to me and said, we're going, especially the under-7 season. We're going to go up and play the year up. Come and help our team out. Big respect and thank you for inviting us. But I just felt that as Ralph was going through the journey, he was lucky enough to be involved in a few pre-academies, right? So basically when. It's very small, but it's small world. But because one of the weeks he couldn't play for the under 7s because he was obviously still young, he wouldn't play in the tournament over in Billericay, and it was at that point he scored. I think that you remember this. He turned up. Right, I was away on holiday, but my wife took him. He scored about 20 odd goals, right? And then from there, that's when the pre-academy journey started. The red side of North London came and asked and said, development centre. So he went to the Billericay Development Centre for a year, and that's when I then saw some of the other players. So in terms of that belief, that going back to your point, that's where I believe personally that Ralph and the team around him, who on that journey, they can compete with these boys, right? So because again, there's a lot of talk. There's this team, that time, and sometimes it's a bit like pro teams. If you're a League 2 team going to a Premier League team, you're like, oh my god, we're going there. But the reality is, if you show that commitment and show that desire and the will to win, you will win. It happens in all levels of football. So, but I could also see the ability from when my boy was playing with some of those boys in the pre-academy setup. I could see that our boys in our team, and I said to some of their parents, look, we're just as good, because there were some naturally it happens. Oh my God, we're playing these today. No, don't worry. Have confidence in our boys, because they're making the right decisions. They may lose, they may win, but as the last 2 years that we had our fair share of victories at Chiro.
Thank you.
So, OC is telling us he's the next coming of Pep Guardiola, but it sounded like just give the ball to Ralph. No, I'm joking, OC. You never claimed to be Pep Guardiola. No, I couldn't resist that. But Jason, so slightly different question here. So
Cool.
obviously, you had the pick of the litter to a certain degree. I kind of understand why you made your decision, but can you, before I ask my next question, can you just give us an indication of how many potential opportunities you had, or how many sign-ins you turned down?
Yes, sure. So in terms of pre-academy, so Ralph was involved at, happy to name the clubs, but he was involved at Tottenham pre-academy, Chelsea, West Ham, dipped into Palace, and who else we got? Chelsea, Spurs, Palace, West Ham, and Arsenal. Sorry, yeah. So they were the key ones that he was involved in, right? So I would say as we moved. So the Palace one, we went there a couple of times, but again, if I'm being honest, it was just distance. So we sort of very, very, very early on, we sort of, put that one to one side. We were asked a number of times, but we put that one to one side. But again, not a nice club. With Chelsea, so I'm doing it in reverse order, but Chelsea, again, as an under six, when towards the end of the under six season, was part of the development centre in Barking, and again, had opportunities, went into Cobham. Probably didn't get through the rounds there, but again, we know the quality that's at Chelsea. I don't think it's to say that he wasn't strong enough, but equally, when I look back, we didn't probably commit to the development day sessions as much because they were in between to two other clubs. So we probably prioritised Tottenham, Arsenal, and West Ham. They were the clubs that we prioritised. West Ham were round the corner, but also they play good football, right? They're renowned for that footballing. It's very similar to the way Ralph plays. Tottenham, again, it was a club close to us as a family, but equally it was a great opportunity for him, to go there from they were Tigers, and off the back of going to a tournament with Tigers as an under 6 team. Again, he was invited back in, so he was there from sort of end of under sixes all the way through, and then it was very much the same at Arsenal in terms of the pre-academy, so the development centre, Hale End as well, and I suppose the offers that we had a couple of offers from we had an offer from West Ham, offer from Spurs, but we weren't offered by Arsenal as such, but the reality is we had already chosen Spurs, and we'd already made our decision, which wasn't an easy decision because again, we just wanted to make sure that, and again, we break it down by school terms. So almost by October last year. So once we got to the summer of last year, we in our heads, we were like, we would love to know by the October half term, because there's a lot to do, Andrew, right? There's training basically I think the only night off he had was probably a Tuesday, and that's, as I say, that's because we decided to pull him out. But all the other nights there was pre-academy action, right? And that was, and then come Saturday and Sunday, you got to turn up for your. So we'd have a Friday night with one club playing 8 games. Then you'd play Saturday with another pre-academy team. That's another 8 games, and then Sunday with Tigers. And that's where you then have to balance it out in terms of what's right for my child, which is why, come that October half term last year, once we'd received a couple of offers, we decided to commit just to that one club, and then that just allowed Ralph and us as a family just to have that focus.
How was Ralph through that period in terms of, he loves the game, you said? Obviously a key player, not always on the ball, but got a lot of the ball. So his work rate was up. How did you fuel him? How did you motivate him? Did he need motivating? How was he? He's a 7, 8. Oh no, he's October, so he's 8-year-old. So
yeah, and you know what I would say is, like you say, I think the under 7 season, he was. I'm not sure I would say this. He was probably the talisman, right, in terms of our team. And again, wasn't just give the ball to Ralph, but ultimately he was making good decisions, right? He would finish, he would pass. He was standing out. I think he still stood out in the under 8 season, but I think both myself and Atura as the manager, we sort of tried to set Ralph some different challenges to help his game, right? So there was other boys that came in, as Atura has mentioned, that are also been signed, and therefore he may not get all of the goals, but actually how can you influence, how can you contribute? So what I then started to do at the start of the end of under 7, start of under 8 season, I started setting little tasks in the car, because those car journeys are important, right? So I said so said to him, "So what are the 3 things you're going to do this week?" We do it at the start of the week, and he'd say, "I want to do an Iniesta. I want to do, I want to score with my left foot." And or I want to make a clip pass. They would be the 3 things that he would focus on. And then I'd say to him throughout the different sessions and come the games, how did you get on? Did you do those things? So firstly, how did you feel? Did you enjoy it today? Did you play well? Great. And how about the 3 things we discussed? So it was almost about setting little challenges for him. And I'm sure OC would agree, because I know he set a few challenges for Ralph as well. But again, just that listening and that understanding, he was able to take those things on, which I then saw throughout the under-8 season. So if you probably saw Ralph as an under-7, under-6, you'd be like, this guy's a finisher. He's just, but actually, as he went through the under-8 season, as he's sort of showing now in the under-9 season, he's someone who's always been able to get his head up and play a pass. So that's evolved his game as well.
You too, brilliant. Let
me speak to that quickly. So I think, again, I don't want to come up because obviously I was his coach, but I think that when you're in a team going through that pre-academy journey, we do need to have a good relationship and consensus with the coach. So I saw Ralph, I saw what level he was at, and the under 7 season, even though he wasn't training because he was doing his pre-academy bits, made him captain of the team. And I think that was something that allowed him to relish that leadership, sort of get his chest up and really allow him to sort of be that key part of the team, if you like. But I think as we come through to our next season and boys are getting a little bit older and we're like, okay, let's take a different approach. What I liked about Ralph is how grounded he was, which I think comes from yourself as well, because the armband was then shared about, but the targets that we set him in terms of, can you still lead the team? Can you use your left side a bit more? He took it on so well. So I feel like in this day and age right now, probably way before we were born as well, you've got different mentalities and different approaches. And let's face it, in the academy system, a lot of parents think that their kids are Maradonas, which is fine because they're fantastic. But can speak to me about that grounding that you've given Ralph. He's been a fantastic player. Sorry, let me just try and get this in. There was never a point within the team where I said to the boys, there was never a game where I said, get the ball to Ralph. Get the ball to Ralph. That was never ever the case. But
I've seen your chalkboard, OC.
but sorry. Just speak to that mentality that he has, and that I suppose like a level of humility that he's got, but still aspires to be great.
Yeah, no. Listen, I think we're our background as a family. My dad's quite strict. He was strict on me and my brother, and then I would say I've adapted to that as a parent, but equally there are some things that are key. So there's certain levels he has to achieve. There's certain standards that he has to adhere to. So I wouldn't say pander to him, but if he's done wrong, he's done wrong. So and almost just try and make sure that he's relaxed and understands where he can help others as well, so not just himself, and we're trying to instill that in him, because whilst we would love him to be a footballer, we're also trying to build a good human being, right, and trying to understand what life is like, and sometimes you need to be a chameleon, you need to be able to be adaptable, you need to go into different environments, and from a young age he's had so much experience of going into these different environments, school, nursery, little kickers, whatever it may be, and you have to be helpful to others. You have to stay calm. So we've always said to him, stay calm, be nice. But I think, like you said, those leadership qualities, at school when they want people to help out or be ambassadors, he's always done that as well. So again, he's almost got that. He leads by example. Again, I'm sure we've all seen it in football. You get leaders on the pitch who are shouting and hollering, and you can hear them. I like to think that Ralph he leads by example. Even at this young age, and he will try and do the right thing for the team first and foremost, which, if I'm being honest, I was probably a bit like that as a youngster as well, and I used to play right back, left back, go and help out different positions, and sometimes that can be to the detriment because you're the nice guy, So what I'm also trying to do is make sure that as Ralph goes on his journey, he just understands that be humble, be nice, but also there's a time to be focused in terms of what you need to do to deliver. Because again, this journey it's a team sport, OC, but it's an individual journey. So it's important just to understand that there's going to be times you need to step up, and if you need to show that I can dribble through someone as well and finish, make sure you show it and do it at the right time, but not to the detriment of the team. So it's just getting that word balance, as both on and off the pitch.
So Andy, I'll do a couple more and I'll let you jump back in. But obviously, Ralph, you're from Hornchurch area, obviously Essex and proud, as it were, RM boys. But certainly in these Cat 1 spaces, you've got boys that are more inner city, East London and South London, and we all know that, like, listen, if we travelled a bit, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes down the road and we were playing an Essex Cup game, we knew that we were going to have quite an easy day, because maybe a little bit softer out there, as it were. But I just wanted to understand a little bit, like, what's your thoughts and perspective on how Ralph has navigated that journey as an Essex boy? Because let's face it, I haven't looked at the numbers, but you're not going to find loads and loads of Essex kids in those top Cat 1s. A lot of them are going to be from inner city London. So how have you built him up to be in that environment? Because life, listen, I don't want to go on so much about it, but life in Hornchurch is different to life in Hackney. Do you understand? So I just want to understand how it is that you managed to get that mentality in where he's going to go in there and really compete with the boys that, let's face it, they might be a little bit more hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it goes back to what I was alluding to earlier about the under 6 and under 7 journey, and coaching him individually, but also dipping him into the one-to-ones and dipping him into the elite group sessions, and I think those elite group sessions helped him, because obviously you're up against the best in South London, North London, and West London as well, and like, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, he's just a little Essex boy, right? It's nice boots, rocking up. Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you mean we're on grass? So again, just making sure that he understands what's what, which is why I used to take him over Bretton's and train on the worst bit of grass. He used to be like, I can't go on the pitch. No, we're going on this bit, like where it's all bobbly, etc. Because that is football. You can't be playing on nice Astros all the time. And I think, to your point, it's the navigation of playing against the boys from different areas is massive, So when I think about the first time he went into Hale End, and obviously it's a nice dome, but it's very tight, and he's the little Essex boy. He's come from the Billericay Centre, and listen, there's a couple of boys there, great players, but in the little 5-a-side tournament, they upped him. Like they proper put it on him, and he gave me that little look. So Ralph, he's a bit of a smiler. He looked at me, and I just looked back at him and went, "You're in the cage, son." So basically, roll your sleeves up and get going, right? And I think from that moment as an under 7, that then helped him. So then throughout the under 7 season, we wouldn't go to all of them, but we would go to certain master classes that high profile master classes, and naturally there you got some top kids from all over London. So that then just helped him develop and just have that little bit of focus. And dare I say it, that he knew that he was able to be at that level. So yeah, you'd get someone who would drop a little, Zidane turn on him, but then he would go and do a Zidane turn on them, or do a little Maradona. So it's all about gaining that confidence as we went through the sort of the under 7 and under 8 season. And I think naturally what then happens, OC, those players start to respect Ralph and some of the other Essex boys, because they realised, no, do you know what? They're ballers as well. There's people I used to play with, and they were ballers back then, and you thought, oh my god, back then, but actually they were just ballers like you. So in the same way, Ralph. As an Essex boy, like you say, he's going through that journey. But I think, yeah, like you say, we have some, no disrespect to the teams, we had some easier games, but equally when we came up against those tougher oppositions, and you used to put us into some really tough tournaments, up and down ENGs and big up to ENG and some of those other tournaments, you're up against the best, and there was no hiding place. So again, in terms of navigating that challenge, it was just making sure that we dipped in with the right boys at the right time. And don't get me wrong, there are some people that still do that every single week, no problem at all. But because he's in the academy setup now, he's working with those boys daily. Pretty much half the week, right? So I don't feel the need to have to do it as often. But then we might, when it comes to half terms, we might do a masterclass with those groups if we can get in there, or we might do training with other boys, who are from those academies or top grassroots. So I think all of those things were good tests as we went through.
Brilliant. So, Jason, we're going to touch on his current journey in the academy in a second. I just have a couple of questions because you mentioned a few things and I thought, great. But before I answer those questions, there's nothing wrong with Hackney, yeah? That's where I came from. Yeah, just saying. All right? So anyone who knows me who's listening to this is going to think, why have I not repped Hackney? So no, I'm only joking. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. We have the cages. The South London still have the cages. I know exactly what you mean. There is a bit of difference, and you've got to navigate each environment that you're in. So that's brilliant. So you touched on development days.
Yep.
And you touched on the car journey.
Yeah.
So how many? I don't know how many, but when Ralph had one of those development days, what was your car journey like with him?
Yeah, it was just try and make it positive, right? Because my dad used to. You sort of go back to your youth, right? And I remember I'd play games, and my dad was a good guy. He still is a good guy, right? But the reality is, be like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. He'd be there with his flat cap. He wouldn't be staying with the parents. He'd call me over before half time. I didn't want to be that sort of dad where your son's constantly looking at you. I wanted to just make sure that Ralph enjoys his football and made sure that play with a smile, because when he plays with a smile, he's at his best. So on those car journeys, win, lose or draw, we would always focus on those three things. And I'd always say to him, okay, if you weren't able to do those things, are you going to try and do those things next time? And he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to try and do it even better. And that was that's the mentality that Ralph's got, right? He wants to be the best. He wants to do things well all the time. And but equally, they're young boys, right? They're going through a journey, and we've all seen our kids grow up. And I'd say maybe under 7, under 8, under 7 season, there's probably a little bit of emotion there. Early under 8 season, a little bit more emotion in terms of, this isn't going my way. But again, that's where you're building resilience, right? And to say, these things didn't go your way this time, but there's another game next week, and you can try it then. The season's not over. So again, it was just trying to get him to understand. But you can't take that youthful exuberance away from children or anyone really. You got to help them just navigate the path and just understand that. And which is why I love the fact that we were at Tigers, because we did not win every week, but we won most weeks. But we didn't win every single week. We weren't sort of this is our game. We'd be confident. But equally, we know we got to deal with defeat as well. So on his journey, I know that Ralph knows how to deal with defeat. Not saying that others don't, but there's that little bit of resilience around. Okay, we just roll our sleeves up. We got another game. Let's get on with the next game rather than let it affect you.
Brilliant, good advice. And I guess Ralph was obviously doing bits. He was at a few pre-academies. He scored goals. He made goals. He was a bit of a talisman. Is a bit of a talisman. Did you encounter any whispers, positive or negative, about him? And if so, how did you navigate that?
I think the positives were that Ralph's a happy kid, right? He's always smiling, like he's always there. Right foot, left foot, he's fast, etc. I did hear a few things, maybe in the under-7 season where people would be like, because again, people in general do that, cool, yeah, he's a good player, Ralph, but how did he get in the academy? Because he doesn't really stand out. He's not extra quick. He's not really got a powerful shot. So again, no one said it to me directly. You just hear these things, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that he was just very efficient at what he does. And the positives I can take is that when I've spoken to pre-academy coaches and the people who run the academies, and what they've said is a few people said, if you don't know your football, there's things that Ralph has done or did during the under-7, under-8 season that happen so quickly, but is so above maybe the level that for that age group, you wouldn't think what he's done is any good. And it might just be an OC can probably agree to this. It might just be a square ball, or it might be a fact that he's pulled it back into a certain area. Some people might be like, it's just past it. But actually, not many kids are doing that in that, especially that under-7 age group. Not many kids were doing that. So I would say that's probably the only things where people were saying, is he? How is he there? And then maybe as we got into the under-8 season, which is, it's a challenge. You have to block out a lot of noise. That'd be my advice for all parents. Like just pick and choose. People have a lot of views about a lot of things, and sometimes you have to block out some of that noise. But maybe in the under-8 season, I'd be like, okay, is he good enough? Because then you start looking at what others are doing and what others have done and what these people are doing. So then you start maybe doubting, can he go on that journey? But very quickly you realise actually everyone can contribute something to these different teams. You can't have a team of fast, quick players, who get up and down. You can't have 11 of those. So Ralph was always going to be able to add value somewhere. Wherever Cat 1, 2, 3, he would have been able to add value somewhere, because that's football in general, right? He's not tall, he's not solid, you know what I mean? But he's just a very tidy player and just goes about his work very effectively, in my opinion.
Brilliant. And I'm glad you navigated it that way, didn't take it on, spoke to coaches and got your reassurances there, whether you needed it or not. You didn't take the bait, which is very important for Ralph's journey and your own.
Yeah, and I just think as a parent, and again for those who are listening, you just got to make sure you do things in the right way. And what I would say is, in terms of the academy journey, that whilst your son is obviously the main thing they're looking at, they look at us as parents as well, and how you, in my opinion, and how you are. And when I'm scouting people and I feedback and give players names to Colchester, I'm also giving a view in terms of the background of the child, like we've just been discussing, right? In terms of what they like, and those sort of four corner areas, the attitude, are they taking things on? So all of those things come into it. But then as you go through the system, there's no two ways about it. They're also looking at us as parents and seeing, okay, is this parent going to be challenging me because I've played their son on the left-hand side, the right-hand side? That's just my opinion. That I think, just make sure that you do things in the right way, right? If you need to speak to them. But don't shout across the pitch and anything like that.
So how is the journey going now? You've been in there for a few months now, as in the start of the season, going away days, playing, training 3 times a week, got the kit, got the responsibility, group of parents now, all kind of in it, probably for 2 years, kind of, maybe 3, to the under 12s before things change. How is that? How are you finding that as a parent? How's Ralph finding that as a player? What are the challenges been unbundling?
100%. No, I get it. So, but maybe we start off with Ralph. So I think Ralph's enjoying it, right? He's not many people can say this in life, right? But he's able to play for the club that he supports, right? I'll be quite honest. So he loves it, right? He's playing for Spurs. He's got the kit. He's captained the team for times when they rotate captains, and he's scored goals, right foot, left foot. He's setting up goals. They've won games, they've lost games. So, he went on his first overnighter when they have the Premier League weekender. So not many kids at 8 spend the night away from their parents, right? Let's have it right. So all of those sort of core values, the whole brushing, when we ask him to brush his teeth here, he kicks off, he'll hate me for saying that. But, but again, he's then going away by himself and having to do those things and look after his stuff. So as I say, it's an education, right? These clubs are, they're looking after the boys, but they're helping the boys grow. So whether they make it as professionals or scholars, whatever it may be, they're building young men, right? And making sure that they're complementing what we're doing at home, and helping him. So big up to the academies and what they're doing. But I think so Ralph's enjoying it, and it is tough. I'll be honest, because as a parent, you want your son to be involved in everything. You're thinking, is he in the how is he getting on in the group? Because all the boys deserve to be signed. But of course, naturally, you want to see your boy doing well. And sometimes there's, it's elite, but it's elite sport, right? And it's elite football. So sometimes there'll be tournaments, and he might not get selected for those tournaments. But again, in true Johnson style, you don't. Why me? You can't do that. You can't why me. So okay, what do we need to work on? What do we need? So if it was finishing, right, let's go back to our little place at Noak Hill, and let's go and do some finishing drills for a couple of hours. And if we need to get others to come and join us to help us along in those training sessions, we'd go and work on those things. Brilliant. You get picked for the next tournament. So it's, as a parent now, we're now having to help Ralph be there for him, because obviously when if you don't get selected for some tournaments, or you do get selected for some tournaments, which he has so far, we as parents have to deliver that news. So, and just help him to understand, because naturally as a kid, he wants to be involved in everything, right? So I think as a parent, us going through this journey now as an under nines, it's just being really calm, and just, I know boys and parents in the older age groups at different clubs, and you get different advice. I think what's important for all parents that are listening, just make sure you've got that network around you, and so I've got 6 seats around this little table now, and just make sure you've got those. Who are the people you want around those seats to give you advice? Chure and I, we chat and talk things through. There's people there's mums and dads at the academy, again, either in group settings or individual settings. I would sit down with those individuals. There's scouts. So again, it's always good just to make sure you've got a network of people, just as a parent, just to help you navigate things. But as I say, my personal view, and I think something that would help all parents, is just try not to get caught too much in the noise, because there's always stuff going on. There's always stuff you hear, but the reality is it's your boy on the pitch that needs to navigate that journey, and we just need to help and support them, and trust the coaches, and trust what they're saying to us.
Brilliant. I've got another question. I know he's going to jump in a second, but your last point there made me think of this. So your journey has been kind of unique, or Ralph's journey has been kind of unique to a degree, in the sense that, for whatever reason, you trust yourself, you trust your brother, finances, you've taken care of a large part of his development.
Yeah.
When you get into these environments, Cat 1 especially, but I guess all cats, there is this, Dave Bricknell touched on it, as soon as you get signed, as soon as a boy is signed, the scouts are out there looking for a player better than your son to replace him. 100%. And that's fact.
Yep. Elite. That's elite football.
It is elite. It's elite football. It's the only way. It's the only way to improve. That's what happens. Has your viewpoint now changed in your approach to his development? I know you touched on you can't do everything because he's in the academy 3 times a week, plus the weekend, some small-sided session. But is your mentality changing, or are you just trying to block out the noise? And do you think what you're doing now is enough?
I think what we're doing now, currently, the first, if you think about this first 6 weeks, 8 weeks of the season, I think that is enough at the moment. So, we're lucky enough that apart from the odd Saturday where there's been the odd tournament where he's been selected for, or there's been the weekender, we've had quite a few Saturdays free. So that's allowed us to go and do a little bit of extra work that maybe we've seen from, or I've seen from the footage that we get from the previous week, or things I've seen at training, or his mum's seen at training, and just things that he wanted to work on. So I remember a few weeks ago he said to me, "Oh, can I work on sort of some like midfield like clip passing?" So that then helped me to say, right, okay, let's just do a little session around clip passing, right? And it was just something I saw the coaches do with them on like the Tuesday or the Wednesday, I think it was, and I thought, oh, do you know what? Let me just adapt that into our little, just a little, like it was just me and him, and I was just played little balls into him and just said, right, the first ball in no more than 2 touches, so it's a touch and clip. So touch, clip into the far corner, and the next one you drill it into the into the other goal. So again, just it's almost complementing Andrew in terms of what they're going through now. I'm just trying to complement some of those extra little drills with him, but not make it overbearing, because I think it can be very easily done. So rest is important. So that Tuesday he has a rest. On the Friday, so we train Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then on the Tuesday he has a complete rest, like nothing at all. If he wants to kick a ball in the garden he can, but there's nothing structured basically. And then on Friday he goes swimming, and I think that's also another important thing, that those multi-sport, the life skill, multi-sport, he does a little bit of basketball here and there, he does a bit of athletics, so that is a rest is also good, so and again, because there's a lot, they finish school, 2 hour and a half sessions, there's half an hour in the car journey time. It's a lot. Sometimes they're not getting until 8 o'clock, so they're 8 and 9 years of age, right? As you go through the system. So that's the way I'm managing it. It's just doing little things to complement, and say it might be I might drop them into a masterclass because half term's coming up, so we might do a little bit more. But equally, there's a few tournaments that we've got in there, right? So you want to make sure that rest. You've got to go up north for 2.5 hours or a 4-hour round journey. Is it a good idea to then drop in a masterclass the next day? Probably not. So just let him rest, and he wants to go in the garden, ball on the wall.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, Jason. Be honest with you, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I like that approach just because everyone's competing, and obviously Ralph is fresh into the system, and he'll have this year and the next year, and I'm sure he'll have more years also.
Fingers crossed.
I think the extras is important, but sometimes from a young age, like we almost overdo it with the amount of work that these kids are getting through, and they might actually be developing at a faster rate perhaps if they're doing more work. But whilst I'm not at that stage now, I've had many conversations and I've listened to many podcasts about kids that perhaps when they get to 12, 14, they've either stopped or they're just carrying so many injuries because actually the nature of working without the rest didn't quite work out in the way that they wanted to do. So I think the point that you've made is a key one for parents to take away. Listen, if your kid's playing 4 or 5 days a week, it's more than enough. But let's say it's to their own. What I wanted to do,
I was going to say, just on that point, absolutely. If you think that your child needs, and they enjoy it, and as I say, the love for the game, they enjoy it, absolutely fine. But I just be mindful that at some point that might affect them in a game. It might affect that you might see that they might be a bit fatigued. So I just think it's absolutely right. Like you say, they want to do extra sessions. There's no problem with that, but just be mindful and just keep an eye on it, basically.
Yeah. So I've got 2 questions. One, I think it would be good if you mentioned like breaking it down into like the 6. Obviously, I know we have conversations, but you're breaking it down into the school terms. And what I think it might be good if you just add a little bit more detail about how it is you approach these development cycles, because there's a certain level of work or focus that you have in these periods, and I just feel like it might be a good approach for parents that are trying to navigate the journey, as it were.
Yeah, 100%. So if I think about this, he's got in as an under 9 now. Pre-season started in the August. So in my eyes, we had the pre-season started at the beginning of August, then we went away on holiday. So ultimately, I said to myself, right, once we're back from that sort of 2-week holiday, end of August, we're going to basically run a window up until the October half term. And the way I broke that down was, what does Ralph have going on at school? What do we have going on as a family? And almost work around that, and obviously his schedule. But there'll be certain, as I mentioned earlier about those focuses, there'll be certain focuses each week, each month. So, as an example, the focus for September that Ralph, not me, but what Ralph wanted to focus on was aggression, intensity, and finishing. That was his focuses for September, right? So that then allowed me to then break down. Okay, when we were able to have our little sessions, we made sure that if that was with others. So I know you Birzard, you joined one of my sessions. You and your son, and it's intense, right? Not to the point where kids are crying, but there's certain levels that we would expect. Whether that be a running drill, dribbling drill, whatever it may be, but also to help them improve. So again, it's just breaking those things down on a 6 to 8 week basis, and just documenting that. And so Ralph's got a little book where he documents stuff. He sets himself little goals for himself, but then I also, alongside that, have my own little, I suppose, little logbook of what we can do to focus on. And of course, now we've got the Cat 1, the ILPs that they have. So again, I'm trying to make sure that it's not overbearing for Ralph, and that actually there's a bit of consistency there. So whether that be 1v1s or finishing, it's all very much complementary, right? In terms of the work we're doing. So as we've got our review this week, as we go into after the half term, we'll then build out another review that will take us up to Christmas. So, has he scored goals against some of these academy teams? Yes. Could his finishing be a little bit better at times? Yes. Has his passing improved? Yes. So he's doing well, but again, you have to sort of plot the graph, as they say. And as long as you see that that gradual improvement in terms of him as a person, but also him on the pitch, that's all you can ask.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to say that, because so you've been doing that prior to when he got into the system for a long time, and I think at times we might watch the kids' games on a weekend and be like, oh, he needs to be more aggressive, or he needs to use this part. Sometimes it's less constructive, but I think when you can step back, look at your child and think, what does he need to work on, and how can we actually build a little bit of a program around this? Because I take it that because you're working in these blocks, the nature of the conversation that you're having with him might change as well.
Correct. So as I say, we kept the same theme for October, because the aggression, intensity, finishing, because it was short. There's less games and training, etc. But I would imagine that Ralph will want three new things, or I'll certainly encourage him to think about what are the three extra things or new things that we're going to look at for November and December for him to focus on, and then we'd go on that journey in terms of what that looks like, and again to complement what the academy is saying, because I think now we're in the academy setup. I trust them, as I mentioned earlier. This is the football school that I've chose for my child, right? So I need to trust them the same way I trust the teachers of the school that he goes to, and that they've got a syllabus, and they're going to follow that syllabus and help the boys. But equally, like we all do, if they've got their maths spelling test, or we don't leave it to the teacher, we help the kids at home, right? Times table, we do what we can. So that's no different to football. You try and help them the best way you can. I appreciate not all parents maybe have the time, or are available to do that all the time, and that's where you then, as you said earlier, you need to go and get that extra support. But the way the economy is at the moment, it's difficult, right? That's nothing against any of these some great coaches out there. They have to charge for their time, but equally, it's not easy for parents. So it's just a case of making sure that you do the right things at the right time. But like you say, I've been doing it for a number of years with Ralph, and just having those almost that set focus, and just helping him to focus on those key things. So like you say, left foot was definitely something we had during the under-8 season, and look, and now when I see him playing against teams, Cat 1, Cat 2 academies, and he's finishing with his left foot, that's I look back at those conversations and those journeys, right? Because he's not trying to walk around the ball and hit it with his right foot. He's taking a gamble, not scoring every time, but he's not hesitating, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a refreshing approach. I think there needs to be a focus, and I think if we could just help parents maybe just dial in a little bit, I think that would be helpful for them. What I was going to ask as well is, so across the journey, Ralph being unique, his IQ is different. It's just completely different level to any other kid that I've seen on the circuit. But can you just speak to maybe keeping Ralph's identity? Because obviously people are in pre-academies, people are in training sessions, people go to grassroots games, and there might be one or two kids that are doing something that actually my kids should be doing. But I feel like you haven't necessarily fallen foul of that. And like the focus has been very much on maybe he's super strengths or what does he excel at. So just a bit of advice for people along the journey now to try and understand what their kids are good at, and maybe just focus. Yeah, just speak to that if you can, please.
Yeah, 100%. So I've always been a big believer just in my life, and just if you're good at something, try not to. Basically, if you're good at something, can you continue to be good at that thing? What makes you unique? What is your USP? So, your unique selling point about yourself. So, when I looked at Ralph, as he was going through on his initially on his journey, his unique thing was he could finish, right, and that was his IQ was good, but actually the under 6, under 7 season, he had an eye for goal. He was just very technical. So I think as a parent, like you said, you've got to sometimes take a step back and say, how can I continue to hone on that? And actually maybe that's what got him in and got him signed through these academies, because it wouldn't have been for his size. It wouldn't have been, if you look at him as a profile, he's not, he's not tall, he's not unbelievably athletic. Is he quick? Is he nippy? Yeah. But so in terms of profile of academies, over the years, and I think I remember sort of Dave saying this as well, but even my age, back in the day when I was sort of on the brink of it, you had to be big and tall, mate. Like you had your John Terrys, you had your Ledleys about then. Do you know what I mean? These were big boys playing at Semrad, right? And there's just little old me. Not much has changed in that respect. That they're looking for that athleticism. So it's just about making sure that how can you make sure the thing that you're good at, you're really good at. But equally, if there are development areas, what are the things you need to work on? But you can't go, right, here's a shopping list of things you need to work on. You need to do that gradually. So whether that be doing things in 1 or 2 touches, it could be more dribbling, because, dare I say it, Ralph gets his head up and passes, but actually his challenge might be, can he go on a few more dribbles, right? So it's about making sure that there's those clear challenges. So I think as a parent, don't underestimate, if your child is good at something, continue to help them thrive at that particular unique selling point. But then equally, if there's development areas, because all kids have development areas, what are the things that you need to work on, and focus that over, as I mentioned, over those half terms, over that term period, around what are the 2 or 3 things that you're going to work on. Anything longer than sort of 3 things, I think that's dangerous territory. So if you want your boy to do Cruyff turns, Iniesta turns, Zidane's, beat your man, like as a kid, that's overwhelming, So just break it down and really focus on those things. But as you mentioned, that USP, and I look for that in boys when I'm watching games. What does that boy have? What's that unique thing that boy has? And it might just be finding space. It might be, clipping a ball. It might be passing a ball, finishing. Because no one's a Premier League player at 8. Let's get it right. No one's getting pro forms at 8. It's all about talent identification, and that's what it means, right? Talent. We've seen something that may take you on that journey and may open doors. We are under no illusions of parents that Ralph is in the system at the moment, but he may not be in that system. He may fall out of the system at 11, 12, and we might need to pick him back up. And he might end up a Cat 2, Cat 3. It's not a problem, as long as we can keep helping him develop. And as we've seen in the professionals, as a Declan Rice, and there's a lot more to mention out there, right? That sometimes that resilience, that rejection, fires you as well, right? So that's not saying I want Rice to get rejected, of course, but the reality is that is the football journey. At some point, you're gonna have disappointments, and you're gonna have highs, you're gonna have lows. So it's just making sure that in terms of focus and development, and in terms of the unique selling point for your son, don't underestimate and don't stop encouraging them to thrive on those things.
It's a gem, Jay. It's a real gem there. So I hope that the listeners take that on board. I'll hand back in for yourself, Andrew.
Jason, listen, brilliant stuff. Absolutely brilliant stuff. I'm glad you were able and felt comfortable enough to share your journey and Ralph's journey with us today. A lot of detail, a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of secrets being shared, but you're here to help, clearly.
Here to help
everyone. Yeah. And I appreciate, and I think a lot of parents will appreciate some of the information and the guidance you've shared and the uniqueness. And I think OC mentioned to me about how you kind of did it your way and done it your way and are doing it your way. And it's not anti-system. Mm-hmm. It's just not herd mentality. So I think there's a big difference. I was expecting Che Guerrero over here, but it's not quite that. It's kind of, okay, this is what you're doing. I respect it. I will compliment it. And these are the things that I see. So I think it's a good approach, a really good approach. And let's hope Ralph does really well where he is and we can see him in the future. And hopefully you'll pop back on and share more stories and more information for parents in a year or two's time, wherever Ralph's journey takes him.
100%. And I say, for me, just for all parents, just enjoy the journey as well, right? It's sometimes we forget that part. I mean, I've loved it. We've gone to Loughborough, we've gone to different places like Birmingham, Man United. You go to places where because we all love football, where some of the great players have played for these academies. So sometimes you have to also step back and enjoy the journey. And it could be life changing for the boys, but whatever happens, they're never going to forget some of the experiences. And Troy and I've said it before. You cannot take away those core memories for some of the boys when they're meeting players. I can't take that away from Ralph. He'll have that for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Definitely an experience, definitely opportunities that others do not get. And as footballing parents, you won't get, or you may not have got when you were younger, because not a lot of this was available to the number of boys that is available to now. So definitely enjoy it. Good advice. Guys, listen, if you've got this far, I say it every week, you've had another stormer. Jason has been brilliant. OC has been gold, even with his chalkboard that he won't share. And Deji has been brief, but bundling. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, hit the notification. If you disagree, if you agree, please leave a comment. And if you're listening on the audio feed, you know what to do. Review and a like would be great. Jason, we have one last question for you, as is tradition, as you've probably heard. But before you answer this question, you've got to help with the answer to this question. So the question is, who should we get on this show? And before you answer it, you have to help us get them on.
Okay. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Often is. You can come back to us. And we'll leave it in the comments. We'll leave your answer in the comments. But if you've got it now, by all means, please share.
Yeah, I can. I'll come back to you, but there's probably a couple of coaches, some good grassroots coaches out there who've been involved in the professional game, which I think will be good. So I'll try and think of the name and then to get the right person, and I'll come back to you.
Appreciate that. Listen, we've been BallAtAllCost. Was that OC?
I said I'll be on to you, Jay.
That's fine. That's fine.
He will be. I'll be on to OC. OC will be on to you.
Yeah, that's it.
It's all good. Listen, we've been BallAtAllCost. You've been Jason Johnson, dad of Ralph, aka Academy Series, and we're out.